Hello,
Okay.
folks. So it's 12 o'clock, so we'll get started. Happy New Year. Happy Lunar New Year, everyone. Gung Hei Fat Choi. Welcome. Welcome to our 2023 Lunar New Year presentation. We're so glad that you can join us. So we're going to get started. My name is Leon Simeon. I will be the facilitator for today's presentation. So a bit about myself. I am a society unit director from the OPG local. I work in nuclear training, and I'm also a society board member and chair of the Coalition of Racialized Professionals. This presentation is brought to you by the Coalition of Racialized Professionals. I use the pronouns he, him. We have an exciting presentation for you today, so sit back, enjoy, and let's all learn something new. So before we get started, we'd like to do our Indigenous land acknowledgement, and just want to ask, is Mung Mung here with us? Okay, if not, Corey, could you walk us through our Indigenous land acknowledgement? Over to you, Corey.
Hey, can you hear me?
Oh,
Yeah, sorry, I can hear you, Mung Mung. Go ahead.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm okay. I can't hear anything, but I'll just read if you can hear me. Okay. So we wish to acknowledge this land on which the Society of United Professionals operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the most recently the Mississaugas of Credit River. We're grateful for the opportunity to live and work here, and we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. We also recognize the contributions of Métis, Inuit, and other indigenous people who have made both in shaping and strengthening this community, our province, and our country as a whole. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mung Mung, and merci and miigwech. At this time, I'd like to call on Lori Reed from the Society Executive to bring us greetings. Over to you, Lori.
Thank you all for being here. On behalf of all of the executive, I'd like to wish you all a healthy, prosperous, and very lucky Year of the Rabbit. Gung Hei Fat Choi.
Thanks, Lori. We're honored to have with us here today. And I noticed that the Secretary Treasurer is also here. So Matt Biggs and Gay Henson, they're based out of Washington, D.C. And so they represent our 80,000 strong members across Canada and the United States. So at this point, I'd like to call Matt to bring us greetings from the IFPTE. Over to you, Matt.
thanks, Leon. Yeah, appreciate that and appreciate the invite. And yeah, Gay and I are right here sitting together, and we appreciate being invited here today. And I see Lori waving. Hey, Lori, how you doing? I'll just give remarks on behalf of both Gay and I. I know you have a real quick remarks here. So thanks again for the invite to represent IFPT here today. I'll be brief again, but I do want to start off by just applauding the Coalition of Racialized Professionals for your work and your lunch and learns and your events that you hold several times a year. And Gay and I are fortunate enough to be able to participate in them. And we actually learn a lot by participating in these events. So we really appreciate it. Leon, my union brother and my friend, thank you for putting these together and for chairing the Coalition of Racialized Professionals at the Society. The Lunar New Year, it's an international holiday celebrated by upwards of 1.5 billion people across nations, across the globe, including, of course, in Canada and the United States. This day symbolizes an opportunity for people to put the past behind and look forward to a fresh start. This year's Lunar New Year was Sunday, January 22nd. I'd be remiss. I mean, we talked about this a little bit last year, but I'd be remiss if I didn't just express IFPTE's sadness, sorrow, and quite frankly, anger at the tragedy that we saw in Monterey Park in California over the weekend. IFPTE, our entire union across North America, we mourn for the victims. We continue to strongly condemn the heightened anti-Asian racism that our communities and our union sisters and brothers are experiencing. As a union and as a labor movement, we all need to condemn this in the strongest possible terms. And as a union, I am proud that in the face of this racism, IFPTE, not only do we acknowledge it, we have publicly deplored it, and we call for action by our elected lawmakers to expend all resources necessary to beat it back. And I know the society does the exact same thing, to your credit. Also, the coalition of racialized professionals within the society leads the way. You play a critically important role in our labor movement and within the IFPTE. So as a labor movement, this is what IFPT believes. We believe that at all levels, we must always fight for what's right. The labor movement is the conscience of our society. There's no doubt about that. We fight for labor justice, moral justice, civil justice, racial justice, and equity. So as we celebrate this Lunar New Year this year in 2023, we must continue these fights together, and we will. So happy Year of the Rabbit. Thank you, Leon. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. And thanks for those reminders about the fight that we, the struggles that we face in the labor movement. We must not let up. Okay, so for today, we'll start off with a couple of trivia questions, followed by our two presentations, one on China and one on Vietnam. I'd like to remind everyone, if you can mute yourself, and if you're not a presenter, if you can turn your videos off to save on bandwidth. And at this time, if you'd like to introduce yourself, you can do so in the chat. So for those elected reps or for those members, if you can state your local and your position. Great, so let's get started. So Matt mentioned, just wanted to show you here that the Lunar New Year is celebrated by over 1 billion people in Asia and around the world. And so the map here shows us various places where it is celebrated in large numbers. It is a 15-day celebration, so it starts. It started on Sunday. That's sort of New Year's Eve, and that celebration will end with a whole series of lantern festivals, which you will all see. So it's a culmination of events over that 15-day period. At this time, I'd like to call on Daniel Lamb, who's going to walk us through our two trivia questions. So we made them very easy. So if you can get your fingers ready and type your answer in the chat, we'll see who can get these correct. And it is not, one of my members says, I know what it's going to be. It's going to be, which animals is it the year of, which was last year's question, but it's not that. So let's get started. So,
yep. So thanks, Leon. Happy Lunar New Year's to everybody. So the first question that we have, once you have the answers, please feel free to put that in the chat. How many animals are represented on the Chinese zodiac? Yep, see those answers coming in. Everybody's saying the same thing. I think Lori was actually the first one who put it into the chat there, as far as I could tell.
Okay, is there a member? Is there another member there who's got it?
There is. It's Gordon there.
Oh, Gordon, awesome. Okay, great. So next question.
So which animal was represented in 2022 there, last year? Okay, we think it's either Jim or Steven there, as I could tell. Tiger it was, yeah.
Yeah, so the answer is tiger. Awesome, that's great. Okay. So at this time, I'd like to call on a society member, Corey Zito, to walk us through our first presentation. Corey works in the computer-based training group here within the OPG local. He sits on the same floor as I do and just down the hall from me. And I was fortunate enough to get him to participate in this presentation. He's one of our newest members. He joined OPG a couple of years ago. He started off as a temp, and he's now a regular full-time member. Over to you, Corey.
Yeah, thanks, Leon, and happy Lunar New Year to everyone. So, as you all know, 2023 is the year of the rabbit. Sorry, could you go to the next slide? So, just to give you guys some interesting information about, Lunar New Year, and or at least Chinese New Year specifically. So, in China, the celebration of the New Year is called Guonian, or passing of the Nian. So basically, legend has it there's a bunch of villagers, and every New Year they would be attacked by Nian, which is a legendary evil creature. It would, attack their village, their livestock, and basically bring bad stuff to them. And then they figured out, sorry, could you go to the next slide? So they ended up figuring out in the story that the monster is actually afraid of the color red, and firecrackers and loud noises. So in order to fend off the monster, they would wear red color, light up firecrackers, and play loud instruments such as the drums on New Year's Eve to scare the creature away. So that's kind of some background story behind why the tradition the way it is. For me, I was born here in Canada. My mom was born back in Taiwan. My dad was born in Hong Kong. So I'm not too entrenched in my parents' culture, my hometown's culture, but every year I still do celebrate Chinese New Year with my family. I have some family that come over for dinner, and we share a nice meal, and yeah, just hand out red envelopes to each other, and it's just a really good time, and good time to catch up with family. And yeah, so thank you, Leon.
Okay, great, awesome. Thank you, Corey, for sharing that. So our next presenter is Edward Zhang. He's a society member. He's a shift advisor technical at the Pickering Nuclear Station. He's part of the OPG local, and Edward and I worked together way back when I was in projects and mods. So I've known Edward for quite some time. Edward is also a society delegate, and also recently was elected to join the Pickering Joint Health and Safety Committee. So Edward is a strong advocate of workers' rights within our local. So over to you, Edward.
Okay, thank you, everyone. My name is Ed Zhang, as Leon mentioned. I've been in the Pickering Nuclear Station as a society member for over 17 years now, and I'm a proud member of the society through my whole career at Pickering. I work in Pickering operations for the last almost 10 years. And I was born, raised in Beijing, China. So this is China Lunar New Year is the biggest and the most important celebration in the year of the Eastern and Asian culture. So I will introduce everybody to the zodiac, as people were communicating in the chat. There are 12 zodiacs, animals in the zodiac. So it's a 12-year cycle. And this year is the years of the rabbit. So legend has it. How do we choose these 12 animals, or how do we decide the order, which comes first, which comes second? So the legend has it that the emperor had a race. It's a long race, almost like a marathon race, to see which are the 12 animals that comes finishing the race first would be chosen to be the 12 animals of the zodiac. So it's a long race. It's not a short sprint. So the ox, which is a heavy-duty workforce in the rural society in the culture, is a very strong candidate that has endurance, that works hard every single day. But the first place in the zodiac is a rat. So legend has it that the ox has been working hard and in the endurance race. The cunning rat hopped on the ox's back and got a free ride throughout the entire race. And as the ox is dashing to the finishing line, the rat jumped off the ox's nose and crossed the finish line in first place. And that's how the rat won the race and to be the first animal in the zodiac order. So that's just some interesting facts there for everybody. Next slide, please. So occupying the fourth position is a rabbit. So it symbolizes characters as creativity, compassion, sensitivity. So normally people who are born in the year of the rabbit, they express friendliness, outgoing, they're outgoing and prefer the company of others. Next slide, please. So as Corey mentioned earlier, to scare off the evil creature, to save our harvest and the village throughout the celebrations, we wear red colors and bright colored clothes. Next slide, please. So we play firecrackers and drums and loud music to scare away the evil creature. Next slide, please. So it's a poetry couplet known as Chun Lian. Lian means a pair, a couple, and Chun means as the what we call the festival is the arrival of the spring. So we will have a nice calligraphy done on the couplets and then post them over the door frame of the front entrance. Next slide, please. And this is the Fu character. So Fu means fortune. So and then also the center character you see with the white background, that's the correct writing of the character. The one to the left and to the right, the character is placed upside down. That's what we usually like to post it either on the wall or on the window, because in the Chinese language, the word arrive has the same pronunciation with the word upside down. So by placing the fortune upside down, it means the fortune has arrived at your place, at your house. Next, please. Yeah, so in the north, people celebrate the very typical traditional food is making the dumplings in the New Year's Eve over the New Year celebration. Next slide. People in the south, it's where the rice is the major crop throughout the southern China, Southeast Asia. The sticky rice ball is usually the traditional food they use to celebrate. Next slide, please. So there are temple fairs in the country. We call it miao hui. Hui means a meeting, a gathering. Miao means a temple. So usually the fair goes around the temple or on the temple ground where people can go and pray and pray for longevity of their elderlies, for safety and health for their families, and for prosperity and fortune for the society and the country as well. So there may be lion dance, dragon dance, and the other performances. There will be other vendors, many different kind of vendors at the temple fair. Next slide, please. So as Corey mentioned as well, the giving and receiving of the red pockets, so usually is from the elderly to the next generation. So for example, I will give a red envelope to my kids, and if you're having a gathering, to my friends or relatives' kids, and my parents would give it to our kids as well. So it symbolizes a passing of a fortune from the older generation to the younger generation. Next slide, please.
Oh.
So that's the end of my presentation. I would like to thank for this opportunity for me to present to everybody. It's my pleasure, and it is a great holiday for everybody to join and celebrate. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Edward, for sharing those amazing traditions and background and history. We're so honored to have you here with us. Okay, so next up is we travel for a little bit further south. So we're going to look at the Lunar New Year celebrations in Vietnam. And we're honored to have with us today Loc Tran. Loc is a society member. He's a senior advisor, business development with Hydro Development, and he's part of the OPG local. I've had the privilege of knowing Loc for the past 18 or so years. We both started the same department, the same year, and we were both hired permanently at around the same time. So at this time, I'd like to hand it over to Loc. Over to you, Loc.
Hello, thanks, Leon. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hello, I have lost my voice.
A little bit faint, but we can hear you.
Hello, is this better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I've lost my voice, but first and foremost, I just want to wish everybody a very, very healthy, happy, and wealthy New Year. So that's the traditional order that we say in Vietnamese. First, it's health, then happiness, and then wealth. And then I just want to thank Leon. It's kind of ironic that you actually pulled this together for us to talk about cultures. But I know Leon spent a lot of time preparing and coordinating and arranging and stuff. So thank you so much, Leon. Vietnam, so like Leon said, is basically south of China. We are on the east side. We have the Eastern Sea, and then we have Laos and Cambodia on the western border. It's a country of 98 million people. Compared to China, it's a lesser known neighbor. So the main regions in Vietnam is, we have the north, the central, and the south regions. Our capital city is Hanoi. It's in the north. And my family is actually from the south. In Vietnam, the way we say Happy New Year in Vietnamese is Chúc mừng năm mới. It literally means Happy New Year. And then there's another version which says Cung chúc Tân Xuân. That's it's basically literally gracious wishes of the new spring. So while most of Asia celebrates 2023 as the year of the rabbit, as explained earlier by Corey and Edward, but in Vietnam we celebrate the year of the cat. And next slide, Liam, thanks. So I'm not sure why we call it a cat, because the Vietnamese traditions are very closely basically related to the Chinese tradition. But when it comes to the year of the rabbit, we end up calling it the year of the cat. So I did a little bit of looking up on the internet. There are many, many different versions, explanations, and I ask around my neighbors and friends and stuff. So I think two of the common explanations are presented here. So one is that because remember back in the olden days, there was no fertilizer, not a lot of chemicals. So Vietnam was predominantly a rice country. So we almost every farm we have there is related to rice growing. So and rice is a favorite feeding for rats, and so cats naturally become an excellent friend to farmers because, you know, cat goes after the mouse or the mice. So so that's one theory. We decided to go with the cat, and in Vietnam, rabbit is just not a normally seen animal. It's not widespread else like other places on Earth. And then a second common explanation is that they saying that the Chinese astrological ordering system pronounced the word cat in Mandarin as map. I don't know how true this is because I don't speak Mandarin, but based on the Chinese astrological language in Mandarin. So, which sounds similar to the word cat in Vietnamese. So I think our forefathers or ancestors may have mistaken the translation there. Next slide, Leon. So in Vietnam, the sign of the zodiac sign for the cat, basically it's known for grace, intelligence, ability to adapt to new situations, charm and diplomacy, and is thought to be a symbol of sensitivity and desire for beauty and harmony. Despite its delicate appearance, the cat is quite strong and tough. So just so I actually was born in the year of the cat, and I don't know whether this is true, but I read these things, these signs. It seems like maybe a cat then was very different than a cat now, because I don't know how much this actually described me. And those born in the year of the cat are often admired for their impeccable public image, desire to be loved and have many friends. Despite they are known for their ability to bounce back from difficult situations and always land on their feet. So this is a typical some typical image of how we celebrate Lunar New Year in Vietnam. In Vietnam, we actually call it, in Vietnamese language, we call it Tết Nguyên Đán, or just the word Tết. It is the most important annual celebration for us. It usually lasts officially about 3 days, the first, second, and third days. But most workers, like we are here in Canada, where we tend to take extended leave during Christmas holidays. So here in Vietnam, during the Tết celebration, we kind of take a week, commonly take entire week off. It means a celebration at the beginning of the new year to welcome the spring. Remember, we were primarily farmers, you know, rice growers. So spring means they're returning to the work after a long period of sort of break. And it's an occasion for pilgrims and family reunions. So we tend to, like almost every family, have an altar. And then we also visit graves of our ancestors. We usually spend a lot of time trying to clear up the graves. Vietnam is a tropical country. So after a few months, you have all kind of weeds kind of grow on the graves and kind of block access to it. So we end up spending a lot of time clearing the access, clearing the path and stuff to the graves and the graves themselves. Next slide, Leon. So, so our tradition, the first day we reserved for family. children, and then the children come around their grandparents or parents to wish them health and happiness. And then, what they receive in return is a red envelope, and it usually contains money inside. It's nothing much, just a couple bucks, symbolic. This tradition is called Mừng Tuổi, literally means happy age. The red envelope are called Bao Li Si, and I'm pretty sure the word Li Si comes from Chinese. And in fact, the red envelope has Chinese word written on it, but nobody knows what it means. It's probably something like happiness or health or something else of that nature. For married couple, the first day they usually go to the husband's side, and then the second day they usually go to the wife's side. In the north, traditionally they display what we call a cây nêu. It's an artificial New Year tree consisting of a bamboo pole about 5 to 6 meters tall, and at the top end they usually is usually decorated with many objects depending on the locality. Some include good luck charms, origami fish, cactus, or more. Or if they wish for whatever they wish for, they kind of find some symbol of that, they hang it up there. But there are also logos where they tend to put things to guard against evilness. And at New Year, every house usually decorated with yellow apricot blossom. We call Hoa Mai in the south and central Vietnam. And in the north, Hoa Đào, which is beach blossoms, are a lot more common. In the mountain regions, though, we have a lot of tribes and indigenous peoples. They have a different type of flower. We call it the Hoa Bang. That's, or in English, it's St. John's wort. Next, Liam. In terms of traditional food, we have bánh chưng in the north and bánh tét in the south. They are essentially the same ingredients. It's basically tightly packed sticky rice with meat, or if you are vegetarian, they would have beans filling wrapped inside of these. On the right hand side, you see a picture of bánh chưng and a picture of bánh tét. They essentially the same ingredient. Again, in the north they do a square one. They call it bánh chưng. In the south, it's kind of long, round, call it bánh tét. And the north also usually celebrate, they also have a dish called soy gấc. It's sticky rice, and you see a lot of what we do has to do with rice, obviously, right? Growing and stuff. So another dish common is the kho nước dừa. It's basically meat stewed in coconut juice. We also have roasted watermelon seeds. That's actually edible. I think it tastes like almost like peanuts to me. We call it hạt dừa. And we have lots and lots of dry candy tropical fruits or roots like ginger. Next slide.
I think that brings us to the end there, Buck. Lots of great information.
Thanks, Leon.
I'd like to thank you for sharing lots of those foods, traditions with us. We've learned so much from you. So that concludes our presentation. That concludes our presentation here today. This presentation was brought to you by the Coalition of Racialized Professionals and Allies. If you have any comments or feedback, please send it to rp@thesociety.ca. At this time, I'd like to thank all the presenters and all of you for joining us, for spending your lunch hour learning and listening about Lunar New Year and about the traditions from our members in China and Vietnam. As Matt mentioned earlier, I'd like to send my thoughts to the families and the communities who lost loved ones in Monterey Park, California. I know that they were out celebrating Lunar New Year. So happy Lunar New Year, everyone. And I'd like to leave you a note. Let's all be kind to each other. We'll stick around if anyone's got some time, if they have any questions, but that concludes our presentation for today.